I want to talk about commitments over the weekend, winners and losers in commitments over the weekend. And goodness me, Ohio State, Alabama making it rain, LSU making it rain. But let's start with local. Last night, Aiden Kelly out of Thomas, Oklahoma commits to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. We're going to play a little bit of defensive line. Helped lead Thomas Fay Custer to 9-4 in 2019. Played both ways. Also outstanding in the disc and shot, throwing 42-9 in the shot and 124-4 in the discus. He's the 12th player to commit to OSU's 2021 class, and it's 6th in-state recruit commitment. Joining, this recruiting class ranks 44th in the country. And I'm going to point out just how wild that is and what we're talking about in a second. But I also want to point out that Oklahoma State picked up Dominic Richardson after he was released from his letter of intent from TCU in May, because Gary Patterson put him in an absolute bind. Kid out of Oklahoma City, Bishop McGinnis. He didn't have an offer from Oklahoma State. He was entertaining offers from Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa State, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, and Texas when he had committed to the Horned Frogs, 6 foot, 205, playing along with Oklahoma true freshman Brendan Walker. It's a very talented football team over there at Bishop McGinnis. But Gary Patterson gets wind that Zach Evans may be interested in going to Texas Christian. What he does, kicks a kid off the roster to make room. Or so it seems, right? Because if you're listening to Richardson, he's kind of laying it out for you that he wanted to be a Texas Christian. And he was going to be a Texas Christian. Texas Christian didn't want to keep him. So now he becomes the 5th running back on scholarship at Oklahoma State. Of course, everybody's playing 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th to Chuba Hubbard, who is in line to be one of the better college football players in the country this year after 2,094 yards rushing. I watched him go for over 250 against my alma mater. I watched him on ESPN Plus go for doggone near 300 against Kansas State. Same Kansas State that dropped 48 on Oklahoma's skull last year. So Oklahoma State still picking up commitments even in everything that's going on with them. And I want to talk about what Ohio State was able to do over the weekend, because we're going to talk with Jordan Hancock a little bit later on, but they picked up a 4-star cornerback out of Sewanee, Georgia, who ran 4.4 laser just last month. 6'1", 170 pounds. And that's the kind of kid that Kirby Smart usually doesn't let leave the state. Okay? Commits to Ohio State, gives them 305 plus points in the 2021 recruiting rankings with just 19 commitments. If they pick up 3 5-stars, and they're in line to get all 3, they could have a shot at being the highest ranked recruiting class in the rankings era, which is one of the reasons I spend so much time talking about this program, because that's what people are chasing right now. And it means that they took a player out of Clemson's recruiting class, pulling a Nick Saban, where he will go into your bedroom and steal your toys. So big winner here, Ohio State, right? As they are slowly building and continuing to build and looking to flip a couple of other kids. This after losing Devontae Smith to Alabama, and then basically pulling a Lincoln Riley and trading up with an even better cornerback prospect. We'll see if Devontae Smith at Alabama can actually overcome that 3-star ranking. It happens all the time, but those are the rankings. Loser being Clemson, because Clemson goes from not having a decommitment in 8 years to having 2 in 4 months, and both of them are top 50 players. One, of course, is Corey Foreman, who is the number 1 player in the 2021 class in the composite, and the other one is Hancock. So winner, Ohio State, loser, Clemson. And then Alabama becomes a winner and a winner and a winner. My goodness. Pick up the Brockermeyer twins, James and Tommy, and then pick up another kid out of Georgia in Terrence Ferguson, not to be confused with Tulsa's own Terrence Ferguson, played with the Oklahoma City Thunder, but 6'4", 300 pound Terrence Ferguson, and the number 2 ranked guard in the country. Another guy that Kirby Smart just usually doesn't let get away, commits to Alabama. But this is 2 days after the Brockermeyer boys decide that they are going to commit to Alabama. And one of the reasons that's a big deal is their Texas legacies. From Texas. Their father, Blake, first-round draft pick out of Texas. Their brother, Luke, is on the team right now. And Nick Saban goes into your room, comes out with your favorite Chucky doll, and goes 2 for 1 on you. So they pick up 3 commitments in 3 days. And Nick Saban was once ranked behind Oklahoma State in recruiting, number 55 in April. Comes from 50 back to number 2 in the 247 Sports Composite. And the reason that this is such a big deal is, one, it's Nick Saban, who apparently, once he found out what an email was, he got right to work. Found out what an Instagram live video was, and he got right to work. Says, oh, okay, I can do this. And he's already going back into Texas recruiting class trying to flip Jalen Milroe, their 2021 4-star cornerback commit. And Milroe is hearing him out because Milroe was once being heavily recruited by Houston when Major Applewhite was head coach. Major Applewhite gets fired for going 8-5 and becomes an analyst at Alabama. And that relationship remained. So Steve Sarkisian wants Jalen Milroe. It's the offensive coordinator at Alabama. He's getting tight with guys like Charles Kelly. Charles Kelly's been doing some real work on the trail, pulling dudes in. If it continues to trend the way that I think it's trending, wouldn't shock me to see Milroe flip a commitment to Alabama, which is just Nick Saban doing what Nick Saban does, right? And the reason I'm pointing this out, and the reason that I'm pointing out that Oklahoma State is ranked exactly where Oklahoma State's been ranked for like the last 5-10 years in recruiting, is because, one, Saban does this, and two, I was expecting to talk about Oklahoma in this way. At one point, Oklahoma ranked outside the top 30. They picked up Caleb Williams, 5-star and the number 1 quarterback in the class, right? Pick up Latrell McCutcheon, 4-star cornerback, a top 100 player. And then you get Caleb Johnson, 3-star project out of Greenville, Texas. And you got other projects in the class, guys like Jordan Mook, 6'4", 200 pounds, hasn't played a lot of football, tremendous upside. But if you're talking about competing with Clemson, LSU, Alabama, Ohio State, you're going to have to recruit with them. And the reason that I love recruiting is the stories that come out of it are just wild, like Caleb Johnson breaking his recruiting to a newspaper. And the reason that it got broken before he was ready to announce it on the Twitters is because newspapers are in such a bad way. So they printed it a day before as opposed to a day after, because in news, you want to be ahead. You want to be able to advance something. You want it in the paper. But that kind of stuff just doesn't happen, right? Same thing doesn't happen as Jamar Chase is ready to announce he's going to Texas Christian on live television. Had the gloves in the box. And then they had to cut him short because the broadcasters were enamored with another kiddo whose name I can't even remember, was limping up to the stage with a cast on because it was that important to him to be able to do this on live television. They want to talk with him about it. They go to Jamar, say, hey, we ran out of time. And Jamar says, oh, that's an omen. Maybe I shouldn't be going to Texas Christian. And at one point, David Beatty put up a cardboard fence around Jamar Chase's house in Harvey, Louisiana, because he was committed to KU. And that's the Biletnikoff Award winner last year. That's the number 1 wide receiver on the national champion team. That's why recruiting is awesome. It's also awesome because when you continue to look at what happened over the weekend, remember all of these commitments have happened without visits. No visits. Blind to the campus. We're talking about getting into an entanglement on a Zoom call. You want to talk about long distance relationships that work. And in the case of a guy like Hancock, one of the reasons that he committed to Clemson on March 11th, which is going to go down in history as a date of dates, March 11th, 2020, is his mother was going through chemo. She had contracted breast cancer in January, and he wanted to stay closer to home. But he didn't feel great about it, and having these conversations with Nick Saban in Alabama, Ryan Day at Ohio State, he wasn't really feeling like remaining committed. And his mom said, baby, where do you want to go? I said, I want to be with you. She said, where do you want to go? I said, I want to go to Ohio State. Then we're going to Ohio State. And thankfully, his mother, with tremendous prayers and work, is through this scare with breast cancer, right? And she's trending toward remission. That's great news. But she was also going, Ohio State feels like the place for you to go. 7 first-round draft picks at defensive back since 2016. Both starting corners were taken in the draft last year. Feels like it's a good fit for you. Plus, Ohio State is getting in on the NIL bit, right? in the same way that Oklahoma is. These brands are coming. You better be on board with these kids getting their endorsement deals because they're going to go somewhere where they can. And then you're looking at others who pick up just tremendous wins here, because a loser in all of this, even as LSU picked up a 4-star linebacker last week in Greg Penn coming out of DeMatha, you got to look at them as a loser over this weekend because, the Brockermeyer twins were interested in LSU. You lose them to Alabama. That's an in-division rival. You got to play them every single year, right? Texas got to be a loser in all of this. How do you lose a legacy? 2 legacies, twin legacies, with a dude on the team that's their older brother. Tom Herman, homie, what's going on down there? Make it make sense. I don't understand what's happening. And yet, when we talk about national championship teams, we talk about the class of college football, I keep telling everybody, look at the rankings in recruiting, and they laugh at me. And then, Clemson, who plays in a watered-down conference, can still hand Oklahoma their head. I wonder why. Clemson, who plays in a crappy ACC, can still hand Alabama its head. I wonder why. This is not coincidence. You have to be able to recruit with these dudes. And if you are Oklahoma, you got to win Emeka Egbuka. You got to win Kamar Wheaton. You got to get those 2 5-stars in the boat if you want to compete in the years to come. Because we're not talking about being all conference in Rhode Island. We're talking about winning national championships. And you heard the monologue. It's been Oklahoma representing the Big 12 and nobody else. And because of the way that they structured this round robin deal, you're not going to have an Alabama-Georgia national championship game. Can't happen. We're going to box each other out. You're only going to have the one representative. So is it more important that you get the one representative in, or that you have the better opportunities to win national championships? It's a 2-tier system right now, man. And right now, Clemson, LSU, Alabama, that's your tier, right? Ohio State, Georgia, that's your next tier, followed by Oklahoma. We're having these discussions about Oregon, who also picked up a commitment over the weekend, who is new money. But, I would also say it's synonymous with great value at Walmart, Sam's Choice, at Sam's Club, Kirkland's, at Costco, and yet you're trailing them in recruiting. It matters. It matters. And it will continue to matter until Oklahoma shows that it can win national championships with the guys on the roster. It's not about beating Texas, though you need to. It's not about winning the Big 12 championship, though you need to. It's about when you see an SEC West division opponent, where you see Clemson, that you don't get dunked on 63-28, that you don't give up 28 in the first quarter, that you don't blow a 17-point lead in the second half.